Well, greetings and welcome to the Dividing Line. We're in the big studio. I'm sitting down. One of the fun things about aging is when I walked in, my left ankle was fine, and then half an hour later, it's not. So instead of hobbling around, I'm sitting, and this is a new chair, and it's not quite as high which makes it easier to get into. I will. Well, yeah, but I'd have to get out of it and lift it up higher, and I don't really want to have to do all that, so I'm not going to do that. And the microphone thingy is moving around. Anyways, hey, welcome to the program. We've got little blue lights behind me now, so now I'm cool. My mainly still bald dome is reflecting the blue lights. That's pretty weird effect. Little hair up there. It's sort of dark, unfortunately. It'd be really cool if it was all white. It really would be, but that's how it goes. It's growing in, and we'll see what happens when we start trimming it. It may just be like, oh, forget it, and just get rid of all of it. And nobody needs to be looking at me, anyways. I wish we could do the program without me in it. That would be a whole lot better for many, many reasons. But we do have things to watch and listen to today on the program, so there's really no way around having me stuck in here. I just want to mention, I ran into a brother in Tullahoma the night of, by the name of Spencer, the night of my debate with Dale Tuggy, which, by the way, I know they've had their version out. Well, they've had a version, the stream version, out for a while. But there's going to be it's going to be super fancy with the really nice screenshots, and I was watching as they were putting a phone into a stand and trying to connect it and do all this try stuff to try to shoot the screen that showed the slides. I'm sure it made it readable and stuff for the live stream, but I haven't been pushing it out there until the final professionally done version is available. So that will be available probably within a couple weeks. But anyways, the brother showed me a picture of this. It hadn't arrived for him to bring it, but it says Contender of the Faith Award honoring Dr. James White for his 200th publicly moderated debate. Unfortunately, when you get to 200, the fonts get so small you can't read them anymore. And then a quotation, of course, the passage from Peter about giving an answer. And it's really nice wood and an acrylic type thing, and it's really pretty, and I appreciate that. And so I'm going to have it over there. We'll put it in the background in the other studio when we go back in there. So I appreciate that. Next, I got done with the program on Tuesday and realized we had been discussing Mormonism and didn't talk about an exceptionally important event in Mormonism. Russell Nelson passed away, and he was 101 years old. I forget how long he had been prophet. It was a while. And one of the things that's really bugged me, and they sort of tie together here. I responded to somebody on X, and I had made the comment in light of some pretty amazing things we'll be looking at from Pope Leo, that it's been a tough 48 hours for thinking Roman Catholics. And I had a number of people saying, what thinking Roman Catholics? There aren't any thinking Roman Catholics. And I just go, and I've seen similar comments about Mormons and stuff like that. Look, Russell Nelson was one of the nation's leading cardiac surgeons. And in fact, I didn't know this, but he actually performed an innovative open heart surgery on Spencer W. Kimball while Kimball was prophet.
Wow.
I didn't know that. There are brilliant people in Mormonism. There are brilliant Roman Catholics. There are brilliant Muslims. It bugs me when I see this kind of surface level stuff. And we're going to be talking about the Pope blessing a block of ice here pretty soon. The thing that bothers me is a lot of people, they saw that, and their reaction was, how stupid is that? Mainly because, well, that's just so different than anything we would ever do. And here's the problem. Just because it's different doesn't make it wrong. It just means it's not something you're accustomed to. Roman Catholics have blessings of all sorts of stuff. And there are various Protestant groups, some that have blessings of all sorts of things that most of us would go, doesn't make much sense, but okay. So it's just because you're not accustomed to it doesn't mean that it's automatically wrong. That was certainly an attitude I had to try to get rid of, leaving fundamentalism long ago. But it's not, and as I said to the person on X, there are plenty of thinking Roman Catholics. It's where the thought process starts. It's the foundational presuppositions that is the issue. And as we'll see in a moment, this blessing of a block of ice was done in the context of the deception of climate change, and like we are supposed to be able to do something like this. What made the blessing of the block of ice so embarrassing to many Roman Catholics was the context in which it was done. And that's what we have to be focusing upon. We can't be doing the, well, it's just really weird to me and therefore it's wrong type thing. I see a lot of that in the cyber world. So anyway, now a lot of people wonder, well, how is the leadership of the Mormon Church chosen? And I think this is one really glaring example, honestly, of a tradition that is developed that I think the leaders have to sit around once in a while going, how do we get out of this? We need a new revelation to stop this. Because basically how it has worked for a long time now is they are guaranteed to have the oldest, most doddering, physically incapable leader they can possibly have. Now, hey, if they're actually being run by some backroom cabal, and maybe that's exactly what they want. That's what we got with Biden, anyways. But it's the most senior apostle. When the prophet dies, the first presidency is dissolved. So you've got the prophet and his two counselors. They're the first presidency. Then you have the council of the 12. Then you have the 70. And again, this is stuff that developed traditionally early on in Utah. And so what happens is that whoever's been the apostle for the longest is generally next in line. But with advances in medical treatment, extension of life expectancy, the next guy up is Dallin Oaks, which surprised me a little bit when I found that out, because I'm pretty sure I remember when he became an apostle. And I certainly remember that, sort of after the Bruce R. McConkie era, he was at least a little more prominent, not necessarily prominent, talkative. I don't know. He might be an interesting fellow. I mean, the only thing Russell Nelson did that was of any real interest was he was pushing we're not Mormons, we're the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, LDS, et cetera, which never stuck, and it can't stick, and it really didn't. But so Dallin Oaks is 93 years old, and so he's the next guy up, 93, and that's up there. And so they'll reorganize the first presidency, and so right now, there are 14 apostles. there's normally 15. So you have the 3 in the first presidency and then the Council of 12. So once the first presidency is reconstituted, once Dallin Oaks is made the president, he chooses his 2 counselors, they're the first presidency, and they come out of the 12, then there will only be 11 disciples, 11 apostles, and so there will be the elevation of normally somebody from the 70 or something like that to the position of the new apostle. Maybe they should just choose a missionary someplace. Because then eventually he'd become prophet at maybe 64 or something like that. And not be the doddering old man. Hey, that would be the way to do it. If you just did it enough times in a row, you could cut that age thing down, But when you have not even octogenarians, but what's somebody who's 100? I don't know, but
Centurion.
Yeah, the Centurion, Battlestar Galactica. We're back to it again. Anyway, that's what's going on, and we can spend a lot of time talking about how the scriptures talk about the foundation of the apostles and prophets. Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. They interpret that as continuing offices. Paul's obviously not viewing it the way that they viewed it. And so we can talk about ecclesiology. I had a guy, in fact, I was just looking just before the program started, who, here it is, Lego Joseph, Mormonger. Mormons aren't Christian. I'm yet to see a single person provide a reasonable explanation for this. I'd like to debate a Christian on this topic. Please share for more reach. Thanks. And so I responded, and there were 550 responses to this. And so I wrote again later and said, there were hundreds of responses to your previous post, so I have no idea if you respond to me. What format of debate are you suggesting? Would you defend the teachings of Joseph Smith in the sermon that is most often cited by the First Presidency and apostles of the LDS Church, the King Follett Funeral Discourse? That would be similar to this debate from a number of years ago at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City, and then I linked to the Martin Tanner debate that we had up there on the nature of God. No response. So might have been missed. Who knows? I don't know. But a lot of that stuff is going on right now, and you'll notice what I focused upon was not side issues, but the only thing that really, you have to start with who God is. The reason, and I said it on Tuesday, the reason that we say that Mormonism is not Christian, the reason that we say Islam is closer to biblical Christianity than Mormonism is because of the initial starting place. Whether you believe there is one God who created all things, or whether you believe that there are many gods. And Mormonism, in its fully orthodox expression, is as polytheistic as any religion ever thought up by man, because really Mormonism is saying that there are an unlimited number of gods. And in fact, the number of gods is increasing every day. And so there is no more definitional thing regarding a religion than that. So that's where you've got to start. Sure, you can have an argument about the canon of Scripture, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pro-Great Price, Book of Abraham especially. You can address those things, but they're secondary, because it's not like when we're debating Roman Catholics on the Apocrypha. That's very different. We're we're at least agreed that there's one God, creator of all things, who has revealed himself in a particular fashion. It's a much narrower spectrum. And once you're dealing with Mormonism, you're dealing with stuff that's way, 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 way out there. And so we will see. Let's see. I don't think they wait for conference to do stuff like this. No, I'm sure they will do that over the next couple of weeks. And but next April, then, well, okay, actually this weekend. I wonder if it could happen this weekend. Yeah, because I mean this is conference weekend in Salt Lake, so. It may require them to move a little faster than they want to move, but it would not surprise me at all if they reconstitute the first presidency. Dallin Oaks is introduced as the president of the church, and they probably would even have the next apostle lined up too. Yeah, that's possible. We are thinking about, we're looking at the possibility of being up in Utah next April for conference. Haven't been up there for conference for a long time. In fact, the last time we were up there for conference was in April of 23, I think. Yeah, it was April of 23. And almost got snowed in. That had been such a huge snow year up there. And I remember when I pulled out, I was up on a ladder trying to sweep the snow off the top of the slide outs on the Jayco we had at the time. But yeah, we haven't been up there for a while. And that means Jason Wallace hasn't been able to be having quite as much fun as he normally would like to have in making trouble in Salt Lake City. So we're looking at that possibility to get up there and do some stuff. So, but my apologies for Tuesday having discussed Mormonism and then spaced the major news development in the passing of the Mormon prophet. And it was interesting. I just saw that Dallin Oaks will only be the 18th prophet. Mormonism is very young, comparatively speaking. I mean, April 6th, 1830 is not that long ago. And I know you young folks are going, what are you talking about? It's almost 200 years ago. But still, in the spectrum of things, 1830 is not exactly ancient history. And so it'd be really interesting. I mean, it sure would spice things up if Dallin Oaks decided he wanted to expand the Doctrine and Covenants a little bit and have a few special revelations. They couldn't stop him. Well, I'm not sure if I want to actually stay with that statement or not. Maybe there would be a way. Anyway. Okay, so before we get to Pope Leo and the demonstration, honestly, that, well, I'll hold this comment until we get to him, but that Francis continues to live, okay? Francis continues to live. A lot of people don't keep track of the Church of England. Most of the time, honestly, that we talk about the Church of England anymore, it's just documenting a new level of apostasy. I remember it was years and years ago that we talked on this program about some priest in the Church of England that basically came out and said he could not affirm the existence of God, and the church refused to get rid of him. and that was sort of the first indication that, wow, things are really bad over there. And so, and I had a article in here somewhere where the former Archbishop of Canterbury had made some amazing statement. I forget what it was, but it was some embarrassing thing about how he was embarrassed about conservative positions that he had taken in the past and things like that. And it was very sad what had happened with him. When he first became Archbishop of Canterbury, there was some hope for some level of evangelical renewal in essence, but that never ever took place. And so I was just scrolling looking for it, and of course, you know, it'll show up after the program's over. So there is a new Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, you got to understand something. Church of England's been around for a little while now. You can argue about the origins of the Church of England at the time of the Reformation, Henry and all those things, and there's good grounds for arguing about stuff. But what we've been observing for the past century has been a public not decline, a degeneration of what was once, I mean, there have been some great men in the Church of England. There really have been. All you got to do is say J.C. Ryle, and there is clear demonstration in someone like Ryle of gospel wholeness, sound in the faith. And you know, there were great decades, might even say centuries, in the history of the United Kingdom where the gospel made great strides amongst those people. Didn't make them perfect, didn't make the actions of the nation perfect and things like that. And the Archbishop of Canterbury was always considered to be a very special office. Well, there is a new Archbishop of Canterbury. And I'm going to have to try to find a way. You know, the best way to do this might be to put it in a separate window and drag it over the screen there. I think it's the only way you're going to be able to play that. And stop playing immediately. Thank you very much. And if I go like this, unfortunately, we didn't bring my trackball in here, but that'll actually work. Well, we will see if that will actually work when I hit the play button here. But I thought this was a pretty decent introduction to the new female Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm sure that when the first women were ordained as priests and stuff, they never really expected this, but once you start down that road, there ain't no coming back. So here's well, here, just listen.
There's a new Archbishop of Canterbury, everybody, and here's what you need to know about her. Firstly, it's a her. Sarah Mullally, former Bishop of London, first ever female Archbishop of Canterbury. Secondly, she's pretty pro-abortion. She said in her blog, I suspect that I would describe my approach. By the way, that's the kind of moral clarity I want from a leader, not what my stance is, or here's what is right, but just I suspect that I might describe my approach, brilliant start, to this issue as pro-choice rather than pro-life. Although if it were a continuum, I would be somewhere along it, moving towards pro-life when it relates to my choice and then enabling choice when it related to others. If that makes any sense. It doesn't. Thirdly, she led the Living in Love and Faith project aimed at liberalising the Church of England's stance on same-sex marriage and has also endorsed same-sex blessings. Furthermore, when she was asked how the Church would protect children from sexualisation and queer theory, she boldly remained completely silent.
What is the House of Bishops doing to protect children from that sexualisation at Pride or from queer theory? Thank you.
That does not relate to the original question, I'm afraid.
It does. It's about the Bishop's position on Pride, Chair, and whether they're protecting children from Pride. They should have a position and be able to tell me. Because you don't want to protect children and you dare not speak against pride or queer theory.
Fourthly, when she was talking about women's ordination, she said that women continue to face microaggressions and institutional barriers before breaking down in tears, and the audience responded with rapturous applause. And no, I know that story sounds made up, but it just isn't.
The institutional barriers. We continue to experience microaggressions.
And finally, number 5, she was the Bishop of London who prevented Calvin Robinson, a black man, from being ordained within the Church of England because he didn't agree that the church was institutionally racist, which she insisted that it was. And then she, a white woman, refused to give a job to a black guy to prove that the church was institutionally racist, but which she was firmly against or something. It's weird. Anyway, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. I thought it was a pretty decent summary of the fact that the new Archbishop of Canterbury would not even be recognizable to so many from the past. Properly so, appropriately so. It's fitting. Because we're seeing England as a former empire, a shadow of its former self, committing cultural suicide. The throwing open the doors to just unlimited, not migration, but invasion, truly is leading a lot of people to conclude that it will not be a lengthy period of time until the United Kingdom is an Islamic republic. And I remind you that many of these European nations that are doing the same thing are nuclear nations. So, yeah, there seems to be a connection between the willful suicide of the culture in embracing the LGBTQ revolution, in murdering unborn children, in promoting euthanasia, in hating Christianity and hating the worldview that gave rise to its laws and its nation as a whole. This happened all across Europe, but when it happens in England, we see it with more clarity because of the language and because of just how close our nations are. Historically, that was our Revolutionary War, obviously, and then, of course, the War of 1812. But so much of our law was based directly on English law and English common law. And so to see this, it should cause people in the United States tremendous pause if we were a thinking people. But we're not a thinking people anymore. We're an emoting people. We're a feeling people. And so we don't see it. But you truly, I said on X, I said, R.I.P. Church of England, R.I.P. England. I don't know how the Church of England could have more boldly and directly stated, we have no intention whatsoever of ever again doing anything that could be considered biblically sound, connected with what we once believed. We have fully repudiated our past. And they literally, they'll do laments, on having once opposed giving the freedom of marriage to anybody who wants it, and all this idiocy, just moral anarchy. Putting her in that position truly is just an amazing act of rebellion. So we. I don't know what else to say. I mean, the Church of England's done. All biblically literate Anglicans had already left communion with the Archbishop of Canterbury. The only question left is, what are they going to do with all their beautiful buildings? I imagine most will become mosques. That's already happened. That's already happening in Birmingham, places like that. And to my Muslim friends going, we're winning. Defeating a secularized, impotent foe doesn't mean much. And you need to understand, and some of you do, that some of your own people who have come into Europe are imbibing the same secular impulses that over time destroyed the Church of England. And guess what? Islam can't survive secularization either and remain Islam. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about that. All right. I did mention this, but there was more to it that I think we need to be talking about now. The reason being that, we commented on Tuesday about this. We recognized how important it was. But there has been a lot of pushback amongst Roman Catholics, not against us, but in agreement with us. There are many Roman Catholics. I think what this week has demonstrated, in my opinion, what this week has demonstrated is that the reason the papal conclave went so quickly only a few months ago was this was already a done deal. I believe that Francis picked his own successor, communicated, or minimally picked the possible group of successors, and had set it up so that when he passed, then his program would be continued by his successor and the successor after that, so on and so forth. He would have been well aware of the fact that no religious institution can be fundamentally altered and changed unless the second generation follows through with what the first generation did. You can have swerves and stuff like that, but if there isn't continuation that direction, it tends to course correct. And the things that Leo has said. Now, when Leo first comes out, hey, he's the American. You know, there was hopes that he was a corrective to Francis. That's not happening. Now, we don't have any papal statements, papal bulls, things like that so far. We will eventually. But the people that he's putting in positions of authority and stuff like that are completely in line with where Francis was. And I know a lot of conservative Catholics that were really, 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 really hopeful that are today completely up in arms. They're all like, here we go again. It's coming apart at the seams. And so here is a example of this. And notice this is MSNBC. And look, MSNBC is going to put the worst possible spin on anything. But it is important to see what they're doing here. So listen into what we've got here.
So someone who says that I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life.
Baby, the Pope is reminding us that morality is not a buffet. You can just choose compassion for some and cruelty for others.
That Augustinian is coming out, and I'm loving every moment of it. Look, this reminding. Remember that moment of Pope Francis on the plane, and he was asked the question about gay marriage, and it's like, who am I to judge? That's the moment. You get a little insight into the papal thinking on a critical moral question. And what he linked is, you can't play in the space that a lot of people I know and have been in the party with for a long time who look at me cockeyed because I am pro-life across the board. You don't get to say I'm pro-life for the baby in the womb, but I'm not pro-life for the man sitting in the jail cell. And this Pope is saying you don't get to make that choice because the moral compass connects to both. So if you're supporting life, how do you sit then and argue that this individual should die? And so raising that up is important. What I also found fascinating and most amusing was the number of conservative cardinals in the country who decided to speak upon this and to go after more progressive or other cardinals. And the word basically came to me was like, hey, keep my archdiocese out of your mouth. You worry about your own little kingdom. Don't worry about mine. And so I think we're going to see some very interesting lines drawn with this Pope along, as you opened it, on the moral compass, sort of directing us in a way that we haven't had a direction before. And I think that's going to be important.
But do you think J.D. Vance listens? Do you think other notable Catholics
J.D. Vance doesn't understand what the hell this Pope just said.
It's insane.
He has no clue.
I will note.
He would get out and make the case, well, you know, pro-life in protecting the womb, when you commit a crime, there's...
Okay, so... There's a lot there. By the way, during that clip, I managed to baptize the podium from a sort of a United Methodist perspective. So it was not baptized as a Baptist, but it was baptized a United Methodist podium. So it has been effused fairly sufficiently, as has my lap. Anyway, I could have not mentioned it. But just to let you know that we are imperfect, flawed human beings here. A lot of Roman Catholics, Matt Walsh has come out in regards to this next clip we're going to show. A lot of Roman Catholics are going, what is this guy talking about? And we specifically talked about that element of what the guy brought up, saying, well, if you're pro-life, then you have to be anti-death penalty. And that is an irrational statement. A child in the womb has not shed human blood. And I mean, just from a Roman Catholic perspective, historically, there have already been books published since Francis demonstrating the consistent traditional understanding within the Roman Catholic Church of the propriety of the death penalty, given biblical teaching on man being created in the image of God. What makes abortion murder is that the child is in the image of God. What makes the death penalty necessary is that the person killed was in the image of God. That's the consistency. And it does not take deep thought to recognize that trying to conflate the two, which is what Francis has done, Leo has done, and you could argue very clearly is now the official stance of the Roman Catholic Church, is ethically confused at its best. And by the way, when does this become an infallible teaching? How can you even know? We have 2 popes in a row who've said the same thing. One changed the Universal Catholic Catechism and made sure to say that the back door that was being used, which was, well, it's now sinful, but it hasn't always. No, slam that door shut. It's always been sinful. When does that become an infallible teaching? This is a problem that Rome really struggles with and doesn't have an answer to. Well, has, look at it this way, has many answers to. that's really the problem. How long does this have to be taught before it's like, well, but this is the church's position. But it wasn't the church's position for hundreds of years. Well, but it is now. But it's 180 degrees opposite of what it once was. Was it apostolic back then, or is it apostolic now? Which shows you just how the term apostolic can be used to mean almost anything. But Leo is demonstrating that on these foundational issues, he is very much in line with Francis. And the liberals, such as the folks at MSNBC, are loving it. They're jumping on the confusion that is the result of this kind of teaching. And that is exactly what it is. It's confusion. So since we had that conversation about that impromptu discussion, the blessing of the block of ice took place. Now, again, wow, this is 5 minutes and 50 seconds long. I'm not sure I want to go that far. Does it take that long to bless ice? Well, that's just it. It was more than that. Let's take a look at a little bit of it, and I may fast forward so you can see some of the rest of it. This is called the blessing of the waters. This is 2 days ago at the Raising Hope for Climate Justice International Conference at Castel Gandolfo. One of the papal, not sure if they call it a papal residence or something like that. Anyways, part of the Vatican properties. Anyway, now Matt Walsh, a Roman Catholic, commented on this, said, horrific, the whole thing. Pope Leo blesses a block of ice and then stands there while these communist freaks do some kind of weird pagan earth-worshipping hippie ritual. The leader of the Catholic Church shouldn't be anywhere near this nonsense. What the bleep are we doing here? Okay, again, Catholics don't mind a much wider range of language than us poor, silly Baptists do. Anyway, now, before I play this, just a reminder, there are lots of videos of Pope Francis sitting there while pagans are dancing around him. This seems to be something that the papacy has decided is part of their inclusiveness, part of their openness, this kind of stuff. And of course, the most infamous picture was John Paul, I think it was John Paul, kissing the Quran. And I still think about that one and go, wow, kissing a book that denies that Jesus is truly the Son of God. What an act of utter denial of the faith, apostasy, whatever terms you want to use. I mean, that was just betrayal in its fullness. And again, I really think that the popes of old would have wanted the popes of today burned at the stake. They would have. I don't know how you can avoid that. I said Francis would have been burned in 1600. I think Leo would be burned in 1600. I think John Paul II would have been. If John Paul II kissed the Quran in 1600, he's toast. Game over. It's all there is to it. And you can sit around going, well, we've evolved and changed. Well, okay, then stop claiming to be the same that you were back then. You're not. But it's a development of doctrine. I think John Henry Cardinal Newman's going to become a doctor of the church here, and I think it was the 5th. So I think this weekend or something like that. He gets his big elevation and all. But anyways, all right, let's. Now this is Vatican Media. See this down here? This is Vatican Media. So this is their own official thing here, and this obviously was not done in Phoenix. It's actually. Did you know 10-degree drop in temperature for a high tomorrow? We will take it. We're done with summer. Well, to be honest with you, it wasn't a bad summer. There were a couple hot days, but it wasn't bad. Anyway, and then it'll be back in the low 90s, but still, for us, that's like, whatever. Low 90s is all the way into November. What are you talking about? So here's the American Pope, Pope Leo, and the blessing of the waters.
I would now like to invite you to stand for the blessing of the waters.
Waters. The waters. The blessing of the waters. I'm sorry. Yes, Pope, it's cold. Click, click. Pictures, pictures. Want to wipe your hand?
I'm waiting for a Monty Python moment here.
Yeah.
Lord of life, bless this water. May it awaken our hearts, cleanse our indifference, soothe our grief, and renew our hope. Through Christ our Lord. Amen. Lord, bless this assembly, this conference. May the dialogue we engage in contain respect for all gathered here in the entire earth community. May we work towards a flourishing of all creation, held in being by our Creator, through Christ our Lord.
And it's dripping.
Creation awaits our conversion. We commit to raising hope and to continuing to unfold a river of hope. We move from tears to hope, from grief to action. Let us speak our pledges. Each help us to unfold this river of hope. After each pledge, we invite you to sing the refrain, Laudate si, mi Signor, con tutte le tue creature. These words from St. Francis Canticle of the Creatures mean, "Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures."
Laudato si, mi Signore, con tutte le tue creature. Laudato si, mi Signore, con tutte le tue creature.
I'm sorry, it's sort of hard not to be thinking of a slip and slide right now.
We will raise hope by amplifying the voices of youth and grassroots communities. Will you join us?
Laudato si, mi Signore.
What is this thing? I mean, yes, it's dripping, but you're not gonna. This must be the river of life, or waters, or hope, or.
Mi Signore, con tutte le tue creature.
We will raise hope by demanding that leaders act with courage, not delay. Will you join with us?
Laudato si.
Okay, this is gonna stop the Earth from overheating, everybody. Even though it's been much warmer in the past without man here, and that's a fact, inarguable. Oh, look at the pretty water in the background now. Isn't that pretty?
Pope's first miracle is change the ice into water.
We will raise hope by standing with communities most at risk.
I'm not sure if you all heard that. I'm not sure if you all heard that, but Rich just said we were missing the Pope's first miracle, turning ice into water. But the nice thing is the person on the other side of you is getting a nice. Oh, there's Arnold. There's Arnold Schwarzenegger. See, there's the Terminator. The Terminator is woo. You're cooling the guy across from you. Those vestments are warm. You got to be
dialogue, creative energy, and solutions that we haven't yet dreamed of. Will you join us?
Okay, so. All right. Okay. That is so massively embarrassing. We need to say, yeah, enough of that. Okay. Look. In his comments, the Pope went after climate change skeptics, which happen to be thousands and thousands of actual climate scientists who can read graphs and recognize when governments alter data sets to try to make things worse than they are and things like that, which has happened many times. Our own government's done it many times. NASA has done it. Look, I've said before, Francis was a benighted socialist on this topic, and Leo evidently is as well. Leo has strong connections to South America, as did Francis. That's where you get all your liberation theology. That's where you've got communism in the Roman Catholic Church and liberation theology. And so you have the so-called infallible vicar of Christ. And, but this isn't infallible teaching. Okay. You don't know what infallible teaching is. 100 years from now, someone might point back to this. If there's been a consistent emphasis upon this in Roman Catholicism, see, that is where it started. And so this has been consistent, and so you can't question this. And that's the problem with this kind of revelational epistemology. And so you have the Bishop of Rome taken in by a scam, promoting this scam, continuing Francis's legacy. And I think that tells you what's going to happen. and what his pontificate is going to be about. He's not an old man. He seems to me to be in much better physical shape than Francis was when he became Pope. I think he's only in his 60s. So you could have as long a pontificate as John Paul II had. And that would absolutely establish firmly the change in trajectory that Francis began. If he continues putting the same kind of people into the same positions of leadership within the Roman Catholic Church, by the end of his pontificate, that's all there's going to be. So we're right back at the exact same place where once again we have to go. When Rome claims to be able to provide this living voice, there's a cost. There is a massive cost, a huge cost. And lots of Roman Catholics today understand what that cost is. They're sitting there going, but this isn't what we believed before. Either I'm old enough, or my parents were old enough, or my grandparents were old enough to know what Rome taught before Vatican II, what Rome taught in the 1920s. That's not ancient history. And this ain't it. So how do you, on the one hand, sit there and go, I want to be a part of the ancient church standing in the midst of time, and go, and my church is changing and evolving and in essence repudiating its own history? How do you do that? The only way, and again, I'm sorry, we've said this for a long, long time, the only way to be able to stand with the apostles is to stand upon what we know they delivered to us directly. And that is the body of Scripture. Once you abandon that, you can do the Eastern Orthodox thing and have tradition from the 7th, 8th centuries, fossilize it, crystallize it, bury it in copper and gold, cover it with gold, so it can never change. But it's still what was believed 7 or 8 centuries later than what the apostles delivered. It's not the fresh apostolic teaching. Neither is the teaching of Leo or the modern Roman Catholic Church. That's what we're looking at. So, Catholics are sitting there going, wow, man, look at that Church of England. So much for that innovation. Yep, that's true. Can anyone look me in the eye and say the leadership of the Church of England continued to believe in the sola scriptura? No. They were compromised by progressivism long ago. They don't believe in sola scriptura. And you've got your own problem with your current pope and the past pope, and as far as you know, the future popes. And you just don't have anything in your system that will allow you to stand there and say, nope, I can reject this and still continue to claim to be faithful to the Roman Catholic system. I know many of you are trying. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you. I really do. I really, really do. But there's a better way. One we've been trying to explain to you for a long time. All right. Thanks for listening to the program today. I hope it was useful. It was certainly up to date anyways. And I'm sure there's going to be new stuff by the time we come rolling along next week as well, Lord willing. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. God bless.